So, welcome back everyone to the 1st of January of 2023. And amazingly, BF2 is not dead yet. Although it seems it has been dying for about 13 years now. It is what it is. It's a stubborn game. And it's a fun game. Now, I'm on Muster, as you can see, which probably is my favorite map of all time. There's just so many important things in BF2 that happened here. The World Tournament final was decided on this map back in 2006. There have been Nations Cup finals, both in 8v8 and 5v5, played on this map. Xtprate got their first tournament win on this map. It's just a great map. And it has the perfect balance between emphasis on frag power and cleverness, I think. And I had my brightest moment on this exact spot right here. The best thing I probably ever did in a 5v5. Which luckily got captured for my frag movie. Which is also on my YouTube channel. As well as the World Tournament final. You should check that out if you haven't seen it. But as you can see, I still have a dot in the center, which instead of putting it in the editing software, it's now directly in OBS. I will give a little update on that, but it's not what the video is about. So this video is really not for people who have had any kind of contact, or I'm not going to say it's not for them, but competitive players will probably, people who have competitive experience or have had contact with people who were in the competitive community will probably not be surprised by much or anything that I'm going to say here. So this is strictly for a video for the public players, like which I mean, competitive players are secretive. They don't like to share things that give them an advantage. Which is understandable in a very competitive game, but these days, you know, it's all for fun anyway, so who cares? But throughout the years of BF2, a lot of things have been discovered or figured out. And people didn't share that amongst, like, if some people in one team figured out something, they didn't share it with anyone. So people would have to sort of look at demos to see what they were doing and sort of, you know, I heard first-hand accounts of that from players who were around when F2 car was discovered. And I'll get into that later, what that means, but and they didn't understand anything. Like, how could they be? How did they not spot the guy? But and then they looked at the demos and saw that they were sitting in the F2 position in the car, which you know, maybe I'll just do that first because I was talking about it. It actually works in any vehicle that has an F2 position. But this is just one example of how it works out. But when you're, it doesn't have to be F2. It can be any of the any position other than the driver's position. You know, if you're sitting, if there's no one in the driver position station and you're just sitting as a passenger, like this, the commander cannot spot you. And you won't show up on commander scans either. So you will show up on the UAV still, but if you are somewhere outside of the where the UAV is, you can hide this way. And the best thing to do is hide under a roof like this, where they're not going to be able to. The commander cannot zoom in and see that there's hardware there. And you don't show up on the map either. Only empty vehicles show up on the map, like you see. I mean, you show up for your teammates, but not for your enemies. So it's just one of the things that got figured out at some point. Probably by accident. Or, yeah, so that you can actually hide from the commander. And you see this a lot in 8v8, where they sort of, squad leaders will drive to a secluded area, like a remote area, and sit in F2 and wait for the world to forget them. So that's just one example. But first, I'm gonna give a little update on the crosshair thing, which, I mean, this is a weird one. Now, I have tried this both in mixes and playing in public. Like, I've played a fair few hours, like quite a few hours, using this crosshair. I tried different things. I tried the green crosshair dot, I tried the red crosshair dot, I tried to remove the default crosshair altogether and just have the dot. And there are a few things at play here. Number one, the weapons in BF2 aren't that accurate compared to, I mean, they're not consistent in any one case. It's like random deviation within this within the crosshair. So there's no pattern to it, as far as I'm aware. So it's I mean, if these guns were like rail guns, like that they hit exactly in the dot every time, this would be even better. I mean, I still think for accuracy, especially on long distance like this, that it increases accuracy. I still very much believe that, and it does give an advantage for certain shots. But the downside for me personally is kind of what I alluded to in there. And this is a comment to the previous video, if you haven't seen that, about the BF2 crosshair phenomenon. I'm just going to do a quick summary of it before I get to the core of what this video is about. But I hinted to in the previous video is that I sort of tend to go for harder shots when I have a crosshair dot, instead of just approximating my aim when I see someone. I take just a tiny, tiny bit more time to sort of before I shoot, because I try to aim better, which slows me down actually a little bit. So, and it could be because I'm so used to playing without the dot. Like, for me personally, I don't think I will improve using the dot. But that could also be because I played thousands of hours without the dot, and I'm so used to sort of feeling out the hitbox without the crosshair dot. But if you're a new player who hasn't played much, then maybe I think it probably depends a little bit on how your brain is wired, kind of. Because for me, it adds an element of delay. Because when you're in that zone, when you're just fragging and you're focused, you really want to just intuitively, or at least for me, I really want to just tap into that intuitive aim, where I just see something and I react without thinking anything. And for some reason, this dot makes me think a little bit about, it's slightly off and I have to correct it. Like, when I don't have the crosshair dot, if I'm just a little bit off my target, I don't notice and I don't think anything. I just react, turn and react. So it, I mean, I could probably get used to it if I played a long time. But I'm probably going to revert back to default. But I still firmly believe that there is a difference in accuracy. I still wish the crosshair was in the center. I definitely think it would increase accuracy a little bit. But I think if you play this game as much as I have and you've sort of never had the dot, you're probably, you're probably somewhat used. You just have an intuitive feel of where your bullets are going to hit when you see someone. And you're sort of used to that. So once you've learned how to play without the crosshair dot, this game, I think you have a habit of shooting where the bullets go and not necessarily where your crosshair says they're going to go. So, but whatever. Let's get on to the meat and potatoes. So I'm going to start with, and as I said before, this is a video for the pubbers, really. People who have had limited to no contact with the competitive community. So, I'm going to start with the big one. This is actually a good flag to do it on. So if you ever played public against someone who was like skilled or a competitive player or someone who knew about this, and you sort of naded someone and you see, okay, it landed right on him, but he didn't die. Like, you might wonder what the hell is going on, but because if there is no, this is 100% team damage, so this is what usually happens when you get hit by a grenade. You just instantly die. However, so if you see, nade right on me, and I don't die. Now, what's going on here is, and this works for several things. It actually works for C4 or explosions in general. But C4 is a little bit more powerful. But if the C4 was like a little bit away from you, putting your head in this thing will work as well. It reduces damage basically to anything. Some things still kills you instantly no matter what, like arty shells or splash damage from a tank or whatever. But what's actually going on here is that as far as, I mean, I'm just speculating that there are several hitboxes on your character. But what's one thing's for sure is that a part of you, or your hitbox, or like one of your hitboxes or a part of your hitbox, when you stick your head in something, it's actually inside the wall. And the nade explosion doesn't go through the wall. So what happens is that you're obscuring your hitbox inside something that is nade proof, like this cement thing. So the nade only does damage to a part of you, or one of your hitboxes, or a part of your hitbox. So you're actually able to survive. Now, it works for certain objects. It works for, concrete walls like this. And like right here. Or, I don't think it works for trees and like poles like this. So this is why competitive players, if they see a nade land at their feet and they have nowhere to go, they just immediately throw a medpack like this and retreat. So this is actually one of the things that makes BF2 playable, like, at all. If it wasn't for this feature, well, calling it a feature is obviously not intended, but it's actually a very well balanced bug, because first off, it makes BF2 playable, but it's actually quite a fair bit of skill involved as well, because when you see a nade come and you stick your head in the wall, you are incapacitated in a way. You can no longer shoot at people. So if someone is nading you and you stick your head in the wall, they can immediately start shooting at you without being concerned about you shooting back. So it's actually, you have to sort of, if you put your head in the wall at the wrong time, especially if you get continuously naded, you just have to hope that you're not going to die or get shot or by someone while the nades are landing around you. So what people who are very good at this will do, they will stick their head in the wall and just in between nades they will shoot a little bit, and then so it's actually quite balanced. It's one of the things that competitive players really rely on, and I don't know how knowledgeable the public community is about this, but I certainly didn't know before I started playing in the team. So, and I played BF2 public for about a year before I started, and I started in 2007. So I played for about a year only public before I even got talking to someone who were in the competitive community, and you know, I was told about this. So back then, it certainly wasn't common knowledge among pubbers. People who were like strictly pubbers and didn't have any experience. So that's really the biggest one as far as infantry is concerned. Now I'm gonna cover unlocks a little bit here because I mean most players use unlock and it's fine. I mean you play how you want to play. There's really no rules about it, but as you may have noticed, competitive players only use the standard guns, which is if you're a medic playing on Karkand or a Mech US map, it's the M16 and the AK-101. And I'm glad that unlocks aren't allowed in competitive because some of the unlocks are just too good. Like if you're playing a match on Master like this, and you have an AK, an M16, or even an AK actually, like yeah, you can stand on one spot and headshot people across the map if you're either really hot, I mean, meaning that you're having a very good game, or you're sort of, your aim is just spot on, or you're a little bit lucky. Like, you can. But I wouldn't be, if I was going to run over here in the distance, I wouldn't be concerned about being headshotted, because it's quite unlikely, even with the AK, that someone is just going to one-shot you consistently when you're running at such far away. I mean, of course it happens, but it's not very likely. It's more likely that you will survive. However, if unlocks were allowed, and the guy up here had an L85 or a G36, I would be a lot more worried, because these guns are simply better. They're far more accurate. So it would actually probably destroy the gameplay somewhat. I mean, if unlocks were allowed on this map, I would just spawn with the PKM and go to that roof in the initial and just cover the entire map with the PKM. I mean, that's what I personally would do if unlocks were allowed. So you can immediately see the problems it would cause. So the one thing that sort of, it's not a trick, but it's definitely something that will give results, is that, I mean, playing with the standard weapons will make you a better player in all likelihood, because the guns, especially like if you compare this to the the M16 to the G36, the M16 is a lot less forgiving. So that means that it sort of forces you to work on fundamentals like positioning and cover and timing and all that, because you can't just like strafe spray someone like this in the same way that you do with the G36. So but I mean, I'm fine with people who are really bad at the game using unlocks. I mean, I don't have any problem with that. what can become problematic is that when public players who are really skilled use the unlocks, that's when like we feel as competitive players that we basically can't win any, like the unlocks are so much better that it's really pointless to take a duel with someone at like medium to long range, because you know, if you're playing someone who's really skilled, who's using the L85 or the G36, they have a massive advantage. And for the very bad players, it's not a problem, because they usually are so bad that it doesn't really impact, like you're still gonna get them. So I really think that when people get to a certain skill level, it would probably be better to switch to unlocks, not to make it easier for other players who aren't using unlocks, but well, not only that, but or to make it more fair. But it also increases, it will also help you in the long run, because you're going to sort of develop, you're going to continue to get better, I think, if you get used to playing with the M16 in particular. So, but that's, I mean, people do whatever they want to do. It's not, I'm not trying to sort of unlock shame. But just know that if you're winning a duel against someone with an M16 and you have an L85 or G36, it doesn't fucking count, man. Like, it really doesn't count if you're like a really skilled player, because I mean, it's like if you're riding your electric bike against someone on an ordinary bike. Yeah, you can keep up with someone who's in a lot better shape than you, but it doesn't count, man. Like, it just doesn't count. So, and that brings me on to movement, which is probably the thing that people will improve the most when they don't have a G36 in their hands, because with a gun like this, with the M16, you have to move. You can't just do this G36 maneuver and just yeah, well, technically you're moving, but you get what I mean. With the M16, you have to do more elaborate movements, because it's really not it's not going to bail you out by just approximately spraying in the direction of the player. You actually have to, first off, your aim has to be more on point. Your weapon control has to be better, in terms of, like, you can't shoot as quickly and hit accurately as you can with the G36. And you also have to rely a lot more on movement. So it goes into that becoming a better player overall. People who, if someone who was strictly a public player started playing more like this with the M16, he would become a better player. That's just a fact. So, but it depends on what you want, of course. But like, movement is really crucial, and this is one of the things that competitive players, it's not a trick either. I mean, it's quite obvious, but well, it might be a trick. It depends on how much you know about games. But in gaming, you have a hitbox, obviously, a place where the game sort of registers if you're hitting someone or not. So when you're just standing still, you're probably, or I mean, you should be technically the easy. I mean, in BF2, not everything is straightforward. Not everything is straightforward always, but technically, unless you're minimized or something, when you're standing still, you should be easiest to hit, because nothing is moving. If you're strafing a little bit, yeah, you're a little bit harder to hit, but once you find the hitbox, you can very easily get hits on you. And in BF2, the hitbox usually lags a little bit off to the... So if I'm moving forward, the hitbox is usually a little bit behind me, because the hitboxes in this game don't really sync up with the model perfectly. And you can see this particularly if you shoot an RX at a moving car who's moving like... who's driving in this kind of direction relative to you. You actually have to hit your RX behind the car to hit it. But the thing is, the quicker and more you move around, the more your hitbox gets sort of obscured by movement. So if I'm sort of crossing the street as I'm being shot at, if I notice as I'm getting hit, I will do movement like this. So changing direction very quickly is one of the best ways to sort of make your hitbox disappear for a split second. I will also do this, especially if I have enough sprint. I mean, jumping you can do, but I can do like full turnaround sometimes. So if there's a guy up on that roof shooting me and I have to cross somewhere, if I notices that I'm getting hit, I can do like this. That's one way of doing it. What a lot of players will do, however, is just randomly doing like prones. This also works. So doing these kinds of moves will make it well, you can still get lucky, or you just have a really, like if you're regging like crazy, you can still hit people doing this, but it's a lot less likely that you're gonna die from someone if you're moving around. And what will often happen if you're playing against low players and you do this kind of movement stuff is that they will sort of panic and start shooting their entire mag at you, which it's probably better, actually. It might sound a little bit weird, but if someone is like strafing back and forth, it's probably better to just wait until they run out of sprint before you start shooting at them. Or yeah. So it's this is what competitive players, this is one of the big advantages competitive players usually have against public players, is the movement. I mean, obviously not all public players are created equal. Some public players are really good, but in general. So another thing, which, you know, it's something a lot of people know probably, and it's more relevant when you're actually flying heli, is it that you can actually see it through the fog. Now, if you look at the corner, the edge of the screen, you can see further than if you look straight ahead. So I used to do this a lot when I was flying public heli, and this is the way where you can actually, if you're playing Dragon, for example, you can actually spot helis in the corner here, before they are within firing range in the fog. So it's just a neat thing to. It's not really useful when playing infantry, but if you're flying heli and you haven't thought about it, or if you're gunning for someone, this is really easy to do if you're gunning in the heli position, because you can move around. You know, you can just move the turret around in any direction and see at the corner of your eye. So that's just a minor thing. Another thing that relates to the sky specifically is actually these kinds of. I mean, obviously, or it's not. It's obvious to people who have been around a long time that in the previous patch, the TVG. Well, I don't have a heli to show you here, but the TVG crosshair was white. So when you were trying to control the TVG on Dragon in the fog, the crosshair disappeared. It was pretty much impossible to see it, because it was the same color as the fog or the sky on Dragon. So what you would do when you shot the TVG is that you would tap the scoreboard like this, because when the scoreboard was up, you could actually see where your crosshair was. Now in this latest patch, they actually made the crosshair black, which was a good decision. But I still use it from time to time if I'm going to shoot, not scoreboard necessarily. I personally use this because it shows where the center is approximately. But if you're sort of shooting at the heli in the car, for example, you can, and if you can't see your crosshair against the sky, obviously I have a dot now, so I can definitely see where it is because of the dot. But if I didn't have a crosshair dot there, I can't see where the crosshair is. So by sort of tapping this, you can sort of see where the center is approximately. So you can do tiny tricks like that, and probably with the scoreboard sometimes as well you can do this. Just a neat thing. Now obviously the scoreboard can be used to competitive players use the scoreboard a lot, and you know, not to see what KD you have. Well, I guess someone does. I mean, obviously we look at the KD as well, but if you're sort of capping a flag, and let's say I'm capping this flag, and they have players who can spawn. You know, I will tap the scoreboard like this and see when someone spawns, because obviously when people on the enemy team, they will be in red right here, right? And their name gets grayed out when they die, so when they spawn, then the color turns red again. So it's very easy to see if someone spawns while doing this. So players who are really good when they're playing, they will sort of look at the scoreboard like this to see if anyone spawns, because if no one is spawning and you know it's clear, I mean obviously on this flag the spawn is here and here, so if you know it's clear and no one is spawning, you don't have to be worried that anyone is going to pick you. But the moment someone spawns, you're sort of, you look around. And if they were, you know, the flag bar, obviously it's blue now because this is my flag, but if I was capping it, I would see like the progression of the flag cap in the bar there. And if someone is blocking, if the guy spawned here and he starts blocking the flag, obviously the bar will stop going down if I'm by myself here. So if that happens, I will know for sure that someone spawned here and is blocking the flag. So I would sort of be aware of it. And obviously he will also be aware when he's like, when the flag bar starts going back because I left the flag zone here. He will notice that it's not going, that it starts to go up in his favor. So at that point he will probably understand that I'm about to come around the corner here. So keeping an eye on the things like this, the scoreboard and the flag cap progression bar and stuff like that. It's like small tricks that competitive players use to sort of give information, because a lot of this game is about information. But one of the easiest and most convenient ways to check if someone spawns. So let's say I'm going to cap this flag and I kill one guy here. Bang. Then I will get this message, obviously. I'm going to just see if... Can I get a message by killing myself? No, I don't get a message. Because I'm on my... well, I get a message when I cap the flag. I might as well just do that. So, if I kill someone... Let's say I kill someone on north because it's a quicker flag to cap. But this is something I use all the time. So... Whenever you do something, whether you get the point, an assist, a kill, a revive, or a flag capture, you get this little message in the left, you know, in the left side of the screen there, where it says flag capture. And that message, if you don't get any new messages, that message lasts for exactly 15 seconds. So the cool thing, since the spawn time in this game is 15 seconds, if I kill someone on this flag, boom, and I get the message, you killed so-and-so, and I start capping the flag. If the name of the person I killed, which would be down here, right? If the name of the person I killed disappears before I get neutralize flag point, then I know that that person managed to spawn in time, because his name disappeared after 15 seconds. But if oh, this is hard to show on your own, but if you get one kill and you wait for 5 seconds and you get another kill, both those names will be for 15 seconds. So it only disappears, the name, like any kind of information you have down here in the left from getting points, they only disappear if you haven't gotten any other points in 15 seconds. So that's why when you get a kill on someone, and if the neutralize flag message appears before his name disappears, the guy who you killed, then you know that the flag was neutralized before 15 seconds had passed. So hopefully, I mean, I'm probably not explaining it the best way, but hopefully you get what I mean. You can also use that if I'm capping a flag that takes much longer than 15 seconds, like this flag right here. Then if I kill someone, right? So I kill this guy or a guy right here and I'm going into the flag zone. Obviously, if he's the only one who can spawn, I can sort of stand here and not pay that much attention until his name disappears, because exactly at the point his name disappears is when he's going to respawn if he spawns immediately. So exactly when his name disappears, I would sort of look immediately to cover as many spawns as I can with my vision, just to like quickly determine where he spawned. So that's another little trick that will come in handy in public. But obviously to use the scoreboard to see if who is alive at any given point, it's a lot easier to do in a 4v4 or 5v5. When you're playing on a public server where there are like 20 people in each team, it's not really... It's hard to do, because there are just... the list is so long and there are so many people, like... So another thing that a lot of people don't know, I guess, if you're just playing public, is that you can actually shoot while jumping. Now, that might be... let me see if I can make this. Oh, that's... when you're jumping from that far away, it's not really what I'm talking about. I'm just more talking about... let me see if I can make... oh shit. Come on. I used to be able to do this. There I did it. Now, it's obviously not something you do with a rifle. Okay, you can see. Here's the thing. I should actually spawn sniper for this, and it's probably more. It probably makes more sense because players use sniper a lot more. So you can actually see. I actually shot one bullet right there. So. Okay, I was a little bit later. It's been too long since I played sniper. Man, I'm not good at this. No! If you do it right, it won't make any sound. Like right there. And the thing about this is that it won't make any sound, but you can actually shoot over the fence doing this. Oh, fucking hell, I'm so... this is pathetic. Come on. Oh, right there. Okay, you saw. You can actually snipe someone. Oh, okay, I'll give up this thing. You get the idea. You can shoot over objects that you jump over, and if you do it correctly, it won't make any, like, you won't hear the gunshot in your own game. You would just feel a little stutter, and the bullet will be gone. Let's see. Oh, come on. Oh, right there. I shot 3 bullets, but you didn't hear anything. Just stuttering a bit and 3 bullets missing from your magazine. But it's not really something... it's more something that's useful for public sniping and stuff. So let's see. Another thing that you might have seen and wondered what the hell is that is team kill revive. Now this is the thing that is actually quite useful. So you probably noticed sometimes when you get revived you get a new kit with full ammo. So when you die, you leave your kit behind. So you can see it on the bridge there. But when you just get wounded by something like this, your kit doesn't appear. I mean, obviously now I have 0-second spawn time, so I die immediately. But your kit doesn't appear until a few seconds have passed. So if you revive the person before the kit appears, when they're wounded, then the game will, because you technically don't have a kit assigned to you at that point, the game will generate a new one for you based on what your selection in this list is. So that there are different ways to use this. What's used commonly in 8v8 is that if someone is medic, like let's say you're 2 medics, and 2 medics or 1 medic and an anti-tank, it doesn't really matter. Like let's say that we're 2 medics and we see a tank and we need the anti-tanks. I can team kill. I can tell my teammate to select anti-tank in the menu and team kill, revive, and he will get the anti-tank and the medikit will be left behind. Likewise, if I'm medic and my teammate is anti-tank and we need 2 anti-tanks, I can team kill him and revive him, and he will get a new anti-tank kit, and his second anti-tank kit will be left behind for me to take. So that's the way you can, that's one of the ways you can use the team kill revive thing feature, or bug, probably bug, or patch, something that's been patched up to make work. Another way you can do this is, let's say we're running over here and one of us don't, or I don't have nades, and I need to nade the flag because they're trying to cap it. I can tell my teammate to tinkle revive me and I will get new nades. That's very common. Or I can tell him to tinkle revive me and get a support kit, in which case I can give him ammo and nade myself. So there are many ways you can use this. Another thing that we actually used to do in Extirpate is on certain maps, mostly like Sharky actually, when the US is defending. We would have like 1 player spawn NoobTube initially. And then he would immediately select medic and we would tinkle revive him. Now the reason for this, let me see if I can grab my medikit here. So I spawned Assault now, which means that I have body armor. So the kits that have body armor are Support, Anti-Tank, and Assault. And you probably noticed that the player character looks a little bit bigger. You can see it, you can definitely see it on the player that he is a little bit fatter. And that's because he has body armor. Now, a headshot is a headshot no matter what, but a guy with body armor, he has less sprint than the medic, or the light kits are Special Forces, Sniper, Engineer, and Medic. So these kits have more sprint than the heavy kits. But the crucial thing in this situation is that the heavy kit can take 1 more bullet to the chest. So they're actually a little bit tougher to kill. So the cool thing is that if you spawn Support, Anti-Tank, or Assault and someone team kills revives you to Medic, or you pick up a Medikit, you're still a heavy. So you're now what we call Heavy Medic, which is something you can't spawn. You can't spawn as Heavy Medic. If you spawn as Medic, you become a light or a normal Medic. So a Heavy Medic has less sprint, but he can take 1 more bullet. So you can actually do that from the initial. If you want your infantry players to take 1 more hit, you can tell them to spawn Assault and you can just immediately tinkle revive them to get Medic. So that's also a way you can use team kill revive. So that's something that's quite useful. Another thing that's really not, it doesn't really have any application in public, but you can see this number right there where it says 0. Now this is because the server was restarted and I joined first. I'm the only one who's joined. So the next player who joins will get a 1, and the next after that 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and so forth. Now if the server isn't restarted, it will depend on the guy who left last. You will get the number of the guy who left the last. So if you have had like 16 players on the server, at that point, it's really like a mess. You can get any of the 16 numbers when you join, depending on who left at which time. But the thing is, when you make a squad, when you leave the squad, let's say we have 5 players in the squad. When you leave the squad, the guy who has the lowest number besides, let's say if I have 0, let's say we restart the server and we join 5 people. And we're all in the squad together. And I make the squad. I'm the squad leader. If I leave the squad, the player who has 1 will automatically become squad leader. If he leaves the squad, the player who has 2 will become squad leader. If I rejoin the squad, then I have 0. I have the lowest number. So 0 is the lowest number you can possibly have, which means that if you have 0, no matter what squad you join, you will become squad leader when the squad leader leaves the squad. And this is how competitive players leave. We make sure these numbers are that the squad leaders have the lowest numbers. So that would mean if you're playing 8v8, that would be the tanker, APC, and the other players who are squad leader. So that's why the tanker always has like the lowest number, usually, so that he can join. If we need to spawn on the tank for some reason, he can join the squad, and no matter, like, if he has the lowest number on the team, he will always become squad leader if he joins the squad and the squad leader, the guy who is squad leader, leaves. So obviously this is not really useful public because you can't control your number public, but it's just one thing to know about this specific number that's next to your name in the manage screen. Now I don't really have anything particularly more to say. Other than that, I have the prawn tweak here. If you want to know about how to, configure the prawn tweak, there is a guide to it on the Extrapate Discord. And the prawn tweak really only makes it so that your crosshair, doesn't become as wide when you prawn. It just resets a lot quicker. So it makes the game more similar to the 1.4.1 patch, where you could prawn without not being punished by having your crosshair spread so much. So I don't think, prawn tweak is a minor thing for me. I don't really make use of it that much, but it's not hard to configure, so you can find a guide to it on the Extrapate Disk. Other than that, the custom text that you see that I have, when I throw medpack, it just says medpack. There is also a download link for my custom text, the one that I use, on the Extrapate Discord as well. It's all under the tips and tricks section, by the way. So if you want to install my custom text for when I kill someone, or all the messages that pop up on the left side of the screen, and the kill feed and all that, then you can get this. You can download it on the Extrapate Discord. It's also cool if you're like a pilot and stuff, because if you leave the map, instead of showing up in the center of the screen, it shows up on either side like this, which is a cool thing. It just makes it a lot less annoying when you're out of bounds in the jet or heli. Another thing, I mean, I did make a whole video about like optimizing your setup, where I went through graphics settings and sensitivity and the special K tool and game lock FPS. Game lock FPS is actually one that I should mention here also, because the game is actually locked at 100 FPS by default. So unless you type in game lock FPS 0 or in the console, or you put it in the usage settings file or some other files, that's where it works, your game will actually be capped at 100 FPS. So in order to run it at 240 like I'm doing now, I'm using the special K tool, which I also mentioned in the configuration video I made, optimizing your setup video. But to make it cap at 240 or higher, or to have the game not be capped at all, you actually have to use actually have to type in a command in the game to make it so. So if you have like a 144 hertz or 240 hertz monitor, you're not making use of that unless you type in that command. So that's one thing that's cool to know. But I think, I mean, obviously, I put out a lot of videos recently. I'm not going to continue at this pace. It's just that I had a lot of good ideas recently, so. You know. But I will put out the video if I have a good idea, not just to put out videos. That's kind of pointless. So. But I do think this video is, like most of my videos, are probably many years overdue. But better late than never. So I hope people who sort of aren't into the competitive community will, have picked up some tricks there that they can sort of make use of in their own game. Even the playing field a little. So, that's about it. See you.